Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Strategic Wealth Strides podcast with our host, Alan Porter. Alan, what's going on, man? How are you?
Well, I can't believe what a difference a week makes. Last week it was like 10 or 15 degrees. Today it's 74 out here in North Carolina.
I like it. I guess we're already ready for spring. Just kidding you. But I
I,
mean, maybe the groundhog's not going to see his shadow, right? Or we want him
well,
to
I'm,
see his.
def-
Yeah,
I'm definitely ready for it.
no doubt, because of golf for sure. So, our topic today is with the stock market reaching new highs this month, what are some things that people need to think about? So that's really kind of the first question of this topic. I mean, because
Well,
it has reached highs.
people need to understand that there's only a few stocks that have grown so much to account for 90% of that growth. And if you're not in those stocks, you're not getting that growth. But the other thing people need to take into account is inflation and how it affects the stock market growth. If you figure the first 3 years when Trump was in, uh, the market gained 36% because of inflation. But with Biden, I mean, he has great gains here especially the last couple of months, but it's only 7% gain because of inflation. And when they tell you these numbers about inflation, they don't take into account food or fuel prices or anything like that. That's core inflation figuring. And there's many things that are not even figured in here. And I've talked to so many people, Neil, that said it's 2008 is going to happen again. 2008 is going to happen again. And the reason they say this is I reported this last time in one of our conversations. The M2 money supply. Now, understand the M2 money supply is the amount of money that is given to businesses to produce products. We're a consumer based industry. And right now, we're at recession and depression levels for M2 money supply. And the big thing, and this, if you ever watch the movie The Big Short, that's the crash of 2008. We have $60 trillion in commercial debt that's going to mature in the next 6 months. And you know how commercial occupancy is down. So there's going to be some big awakening out there for people. I mean, great. I'm glad they have that gain in the stock market. So it's just like I had this one guy. He's a good friend of mine. I asked him. I said, "Man, you're making a lot of money in the market, aren't you?" He said, "Man, I'm killing it." I said, "No, you're not." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You haven't made anything until you cash it out." I said, "It could be here today and gone tomorrow." And I said, "There's different ways." I mean, people always say, "Oh, I'm doing great in the market. I'm doing great in the market," but then they're doing great when they cash out and they can make the gains. But people tend to, believe it or not, sell low and buy high. That's that's a that's a proven fact. But the other thing too is taxes. Now, if you're in a qualified plan, Neil, you have federal income tax to pay plus state income tax if you're in a state that has that. But you also have IRMA tax. And IRMA tax people don't know about, but right now for 2024, Neil, that's going to add over 70 to over $550 to people in certain income levels for their Medicare Part B and Part D payments. And if you're at 500, that's $6,000 a year extra money. That's a lot of money. But the thing is, if you just have capital gains tax, you're not affected so much by these. But when you've got these other taxes in there, you got ATM tax, state tax, local tax, federal tax. It's going to eat yourself up. But and I have people tell me, I ask them, I said, well, why do you contribute to a 401k or a qualified plan? They all come back, Neil, the same thing. They say, well, it's a tax deduction. And I correct them on the spot. I said, it's not a tax deduction, it's a tax compounder. I said, what do you think the government wants you to do? Pay taxes on the seed, the smaller portion, or the harvest, the larger portion, and at a tax rate that they're going to determine in the future. Neil, that's like me writing you a check for $5,000 and you don't have to pay me back until 15 years later. But I'm going to tell you what you pay me back, and I'm going to tell you the interest rate that you're paying on that at that time. You have no idea what the taxes are going to be in the future. And I've gone over this before. On a $31 trillion deficit last fall, the Congressional Budget Office report said that if we don't raise taxes overall by 66%, the country cannot even pay the debt. I mean, pay the interest on the debt. The country will go bankrupt. Well, now the debt's over $34 trillion and going up constantly. I mean, it's a numbers problem. But again, people aren't taking into account the true picture. They need to take into account the M2 money supply, inflation, how inflation is figured, everything, everything like that. But another thing, I have people say, "Well, I can't wait for my tax return. I get a good tax return every year." I said, that's just like giving the government a tax-free loan. I mean, an interest-free loan. Well, it works for them, it doesn't work for you. Why can't you take that money, reduce your deductions to where you're paying, so you get zero to maybe a little bit back, but why give that money to the government and let it compound for them, not yourself? And they come to think about, well, you're absolutely right. I didn't think about that. Well, there's lots of things that people don't think about. I mean, I ask people, but especially business people, Neil, I said, what's your biggest expense? And they said, oh, my business, my help, my wife, my college, whatever. I said, no, your biggest expense is taxes, especially if you're a successful businessman. Your biggest expense is taxes. And when I could show them, and I asked them, I said, would you rather pay capital gains tax when you sell your business or get a tax deduction? They said, well, I want a tax deduction. How do I do that? I said, it's not how, but it's who I know that knows how to do that. Neil, that's why I work with a team of people. I collaborate with top CPAs, tax-specific attorneys, and other specialists in the fields to give the client the best possible scenario, both personally and professionally. But the other thing too, instead of having all your money in and especially if you're relying on a 401k or an IRA for your retirement, first off, you got all kinds of risk, and I'll go over those in a little bit in a minute. But you need to have diversified buckets of money. And what I mean by risk, and you know this as well as I do, Neil, because I've gone over it several times, it's sequence of returns risk. That's where you have a loss in the first 3 years of the market in your retirement as compared to the last 3 years of a 10 or 20-year period. Well, look what happened in 2000. I mean, I got the statistics right here, I think. Someplace around it. Well, they had losses in 2000, 2001, 2002, 3 straight years of losses. And those people, if you retired then and you're relying on a 401k, you're out of money in the 8th and 9th year because you're taking money from a depleting asset and not replenishing it with any. So if you're taking 4% distribution rate out of an asset that goes down 10%, plus the 44% you took out, plus the fees, now you got to take a larger distribution rate. And if that happens 2 to 3 years in a row, you're going to be devastated. I know a lot of people that they've had a couple $1 million in their qualified plans. They're broke now.
It's crazy. And and Alan, that's the big thing that you talk about specifically enough about the 401k and IRA. They can do a lot of different things. There's a lot of risks, and you talked about many of them before. What can we do to protect our gains?
Well, this is true, especially if you're within 5 years of retirement. And when I tell people about this, they kind of laugh at me and everything. And I said, well, I deal in numbers. I deal in mathematical, economic, and scientific facts, not an opinion of some financial advisor. But if you're within 5 years and you've got this high market, cash it in, roll it over into a fixed or fixed indexed annuity where you only need a portion of that stock portfolio to give you the same distribution rate. Now, I'll give you an example, Neil. And I've done this before. You've got a $1 million in a stock portfolio at a 4% distribution rate. That's $40,000 a year, but that is not guaranteed. I said you'd only need approximately $650,000 in certain fixed indexed annuities to give you the same $40,000 a year guaranteed for the rest of your life. So now that leaves them $350,000 that they can turn it into a Roth, pay the taxes on it now, we're in the lowest tax bracket we've been in 70 years. And when you do that, you have no required minimum distribution. And a lot of people didn't know that, but it used to be at 50%. If you didn't take the required amount of money at 70.5, the government wanted, it's a 50% penalty plus all the taxes. And now I think it's gone up to 74, and it's reduced now to 25%. But it's still the same thing is it does not affect the taxation of Social Security or the means testing of Medicare Part B. And people, their CPAs and their financial advisors aren't telling them about this. That's thousands of dollars per year. It's more money they can be saving if they have a diversified bucket of money. And the thing is like I've said before, it's not about return of investment in retirement. It's about distribution of assets. Now, let's say that you had a market and you started taking your money out of that market in a down year. Well, if you got diversified buckets of money, don't take it from there. Take it from an annuity. Take it from cash value life insurance. Take it from whatever. But leave your stock market to recover its losses. And it's just like when 2000 to 2010, if you put $100,000 in it, 2010, you had 96,000. That's not net of fees. You probably only had $80,000 to $85,000. But the market loss we had in 2008, Neil, it didn't get back to what it was until the fall of 2015. That's 7 years. And when you're in retirement, you can't afford that.
No, you can't. And Alan, let's talk about business owners. How do they save using cash value life insurance in ways to decrease their taxes every year as a business owner? Are there certain strategies that you can do utilizing?
Well, there's many strategies that you can do. It just depends on the type of business you have, what kind of corporation you have. But I tell people, I said, what would you rather do? Have taxable money or non-taxable money in retirement? Well, they all want non-taxable. I said, listen, I can tell you something right now. I'm not going to make you the wealthiest person in the world, but I'm going to make sure that you have a secure, less stressful, more healthy and happier life, because you don't have to worry about the stock market going up and down and you running out of money. You've got to have guaranteed income in retirement. And a stock portfolio cannot do that. In fact, all these risks in retirement I talk about, sequence returns risk, the number one fear in retirement is running out of money before you run out of life, longevity risk, tax risk, government risk, long-term care risk. A stock portfolio cannot mitigate or eliminate any of those risks. In fact, they only compound it. You think about that.
Yeah. Is there anything else you can add to this conversation, Alan?
Well, like I said, you have different buckets of money. You have, your qualified plan, your stock portfolio, you have guaranteed income, which is, a pension or Social Security, but guaranteed income and fixed indexed annuities, cash value life insurance for tax-free income. But you've got to have things to take care of yourself with long-term care. Long-term care costs between $50,000 to $200,000 a year, and it's going to affect 70% of Americans today. They have no idea. But just last week, my brother-in-law had a stroke, and now he's probably going to have to go to nursing home. He's 2 years younger than I am.
Another one. Your brother gets
my brother's in the nursing home now, and then my brother-in-law.
And now are they younger or older than you? Is your brother-in-law?
My brother's older, but my brother-in-law is 2 years younger than me.
Oh my goodness!
I mean, wow. And they're not prepared at all.
And that's where cash value life insurance will definitely come in to help you through a certain situation. And then again, you spend your time keeping your body in shape. You keep your mind in shape. I mean, doing this job, I'm sure, and doing all these nationally syndicated shows, podcasts, radio shows, TV shows, all meeting with these clients, that keeps that brain going, because that's a very important part of the whole health thing. And you work out every day. Those are other things that you should talk about in this process of going towards your retirement, is making sure you stay healthy, because that's a key thing too.
Exactly right, dude.
Your health is your wealth. And then you got to have Alan to contact. So you can contact him at strategicwealth0@gmail.com or 910-551-1046. And Alan, and like you said, you can check you out on social media, ask any questions, because a lot of people want to question your methods because it's not mainstream. Yeah, always about getting a stock portfolio, and I'm making 8%. Great question for you in this is, some people talk about, hey, you spend on this. Oh, I'll just get 8% in a stock portfolio. What does that 8% really mean, Alan? Like, because this is, again, somebody, Neil Patel, the guru of digital marketing, saying, I'm investing my 8% for my 8% return.
8% net of what? How much are your fees? I told you before, 401k, the average fee in a 401k is 2.99%. People can have less than half of their money because of fees. A 1% fee over a 30-year period will reduce your income by 1/3.
Wow.
People have no idea about this.
And that's why you have to keep talking to people and keep having those opportunities. So contact Alan today. Appreciate Alan, but that's the thing. He just basically says, "Oh, I'll just put an 8% in an S&P." And that's literally what Neil Patel said. And I'm just bringing it up because I heard it on a podcast and I'm like, hold on here, guy. It's because, he said, no, I'm not going to invest in this one business. I'll just go ahead and make 8%. And I'm like, it's an interesting thing where people just hear that. It becomes like a religion and then they just go.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And then they don't even look at their money. They say, oh, this is where my money is. And Alan, if things don't change, people aren't really going to retire anymore, right? Or you recommend to kind of have a mini retirement, right? Not full retirement.
I couldn't retire. I'd go nuts. You got to keep active.
And that's the thing, because we're living longer. You got to put those years in. Your 70 is the new 50. And remember that. And you just got to keep going. And as 51 for me is the new 30 or 28. That's why I'm back in the ring. Because it doesn't matter. Because it's just basically, it's all about, keeping yourself feel healthy. Go out there and work hard and know that you got to do something you love. Like you're passionate about what you do, Alan. When people retire, if they do retire, find something they're very passionate about that can keep them going because, living off just a retirement alone, that's hard.
You're absolutely right there.
All right. Because again, inflation. Appreciate it, Alan.
All right. Take care.
All right. That was Strategic Wealth Strategies podcast, guys. Take care.